For this game, you'll need the book. There was an old lady who swallowed a trout. You'll need this. Well, you'll need a spinner. This one is like super big and fancy. It's my husband's. But you could really use any game spinner from any board game and just attach whatever you want to it. You'll need the cards. So I made these ones that use the illustrations from the book. However, you could just use any clip art that you can find on Google, or you can draw stuff or whatever it is that you want to make the cards to put on the different colors. You'll need 150 to 200 marbles, or small rocks would do, or honestly anything that's like kind of small and similar in size would work, as long as it sinks and it doesn't float in water. You'll need a container. The size again is up to you. This is the one that I used, but you could use kind of any container you wanted. It would just, the size and the shape would kind of change the length of the game. You'll also need plastic droppers here. And then you'll need some water. And this is, I guess, optional, but highly recommended. Some sort of like plastic tub or tray to catch the water, and then some writing materials like a whiteboard and dry erase markers, or chalkboard, or even just paper and pens or pencils would do just fine. So for my intro activity, to introduce this game, I would read the book There Was an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Trout by Teri Sloat and illustrated by Reynold Ruffins. So it starts out, there was an old lady who swallowed a trout that splished and splashed and thrashed about. It wanted out. So here's where my intro like activity would start. I would really encourage and welcome the children to shout out. As you can see, out is like italicized a little, and there's an exclamation point, so that like indicates that we're shouting, or that it's just very emphasized. Whether you're encouraging or just welcoming kind of depends on the group. The kids that I've been working with, like, I don't really need to tell them to do stuff like that. Once they kind of catch on to mine or Miss Holly, my lead teacher's, I guess, emotion or body language, they start to kind of join in. So after I would read this one, I guarantee that the kids would just start shouting out, either on the next one or at the very least the third time that we say it. So then she swallows a salmon. There was an old lady who swallowed a salmon that slippity flippity flopped as it swam in. And then here's where my part 2 of my introduction activity would start. She swallowed the salmon to catch the trout that splished and splashed and thrashed about. It wanted out. So as I said before, we'd be all yelling for the out part. But then on this part, when it starts to kind of stack up the animals that she's swallowing, I want to attach some sort of movement to each addition. So I would start out with this. She swallowed a salmon to catch the trout that splished and splashed and thrashed about. It wanted out. So then she swallows the otter, and for this one I would do excuse me. She swallowed the otter to catch the salmon. She swallowed the salmon to catch the trout that splished and splashed and thrashed about. It wanted out. And then for this one, this one I have to like show you. So So it's, I don't know if you can see. She swallowed the seal to catch the otter. She swallowed the otter to catch the salmon. She swallowed the swallowed the salmon to catch the trout that splished and splashed and thrashed about. It wanted out. And then we just be kind of stacking those movements for every edition. She keeps eating more and more sea mammals as the story goes, and she gets bigger each time. And that's another thing that I would call attention to as I'm reading. Here, in the very first page, she's like a normal size, right? And then, like, we wouldn't think anything of it, but then you get to here. Actually, hold on. This is the third thing that she ate, the otter, and she's definitely larger. And that would be something that I would say. So, like, she ate the otter, and I would say, what? Look at the old lady. What's different about her? And they would probably, hopefully, say that she was bigger. And I would say, like, well, wow, why do you think she's getting so big? And hopefully they would say, because she's eating so many animals, or whatever they would say. And then we could even, like, if they were struggling with figuring out what was different about her, maybe it's a younger group, or they're just not getting it, I could just go back to the first page and say, look at what she looked like here. That looks a lot different here. What's different? So then we get to here, and she's, like, really big. And I would say, wow, she looks even bigger. And I'm hoping that they would say stuff like, she's even over the houses. Or even I could say, how do we know that she's so big? How can we tell that she's so big? Okay, so yeah, she just keeps getting bigger, and that's something that we could talk about as we're going through. And then I could ask questions like, what do you think she's gonna eat next? Or how big do you think she's gonna get? What do you think is gonna happen after because she's eating all these animals? So I'm trying to get to the part where we're just stacked on all the characters. Here we go. So here we go. So here's like the last one. She eats the whale. She eats a whale, and then she swallows the ocean to make room for the whale, which I can show you that. That's like a really cool page. It's one of my favorite pages. Oh. There's just a lot going on. I like how the people are all running around like, oh no. And those are all little things. Like, we could spend, like, even depending on the group and, like, what they're tolerating at the time, we could spend, like, a minute or two on this page and just kind of look at all the different things that are going on and see if we can point things out. It looks like these guys are over here, like, help. So then here, once we got to this page, at this point, we will be stacking on, like, our last movement, which is going to be stomping our feet. It's late in my house, so I'm not going to actually stomp my feet right now, but it would be like, I'd stomp for this part, and then I'd move on to the other part. So I would say, I'd be stomping, she swallowed the ocean to hold the whale that now had plenty of room for its tail. And then for this part, it would be, I'd be tapping my legs. She swallowed the whale to catch the walrus. And then I'm clapping for this one. She swallowed the walrus to catch the porpoise. And then she swallowed the porpoise to catch the seal. She swallowed the seal to catch the otter. She swallowed the otter to catch the salmon. She swallowed the salmon to catch the trout that splished and splashed and thrashed about. It wanted out. And then I would say, oh my goodness, do you think she can swallow another thing? And then I would point out, like, look, there's no more water on the earth. Okay, the old lady started to wriggle and jiggle. The swirling inside made her hiccup and giggle. It made her laugh, it made her shout. And when the old lady opened her mouth, She let out the ocean, the whale, and the walrus. She let out the porpoise she'd swallow on purpose. The seal, the otter, the salmon, and trout splished and splashed and thrashed about. And they all swam out. I'm hoping that after seeing like out so many times and yelling it together will like facilitate that in their memory to just be able to see this and say and yell out with me. I think that my group in particular would be able to do that, but every group is different, so we would see. And I could also do like a pointing thing like out, just to make sure that they understood that, especially if the group, if it was a different group that needed that. So some of the spotlight words that I have here are, I have porpoise, because I honestly wasn't even sure what porpoise was. Like, I know I've heard it before, but I thought it was just a dolphin, but it's actually different. They look a lot similar to dolphins, but they're just a little bit smaller and chunkier. They're actually the smallest mammals in the whale family. Not like that really matters, but another word they might not be familiar with would be thrashed. So I looked up for each of these spotlight words simple, easy definitions for kids, just to make sure, because sometimes when you say like define this or look in a dictionary, the definitions are just like the kids would just go right over their head. So thrashed, I got to move around in a wild or whipping way, and I could even like move my body in a whipping way kind of when I say that. And then commotions, some might, and even many might know what that is, because I feel like that's a really common word to be in, especially in children's books. But in case they hadn't, it is a little different, so I just looked up, it's noisy, excitement, or confusion. And then wriggle, because like it's not quite wiggle, and they might think that I'm saying wiggle, so when I do say that when I'm reading it, it would have to be like really enunciated. But it means to twist and move like a worm. Okay, so after we're done with reading our book, we would play our game. Step 1 would be to fill the bowl with water, which I have right here, and you want to fill it to the fill line, which I have right here. I just taped it on. I took like a piece of Post-it note and I cut it a little sliver off, and then I just put tape on over it, so if it gets wet, it's not gonna get all trashed. But you just pour some water in there. Okay, so now that you have your water in there, up to the fill line, we would just spin our wheel, and we would all just take turns spinning the wheel. This could be something that we could do as a large group, or what we like to do at Grandma's house a lot is, especially for time and like space reasons, is after our group time, we will go into like center free play or like small group stations, which I think is actually really cool. So we'll have like 2 or 3 small group activities going on at once that require like, or that have like 3 to 4 child capacities in them, I guess, for lack of a better term. And then when they're done, then they like go to the next activity, or just go free playing or wherever. Usually we'll have like 2 or 3 activities going on, and we just try to encourage them as best as possible to do each one. Sometimes they don't want to, and that's fine, but what we'll do is like, we do this thing that's called a kiss on your brain. So we could say like, you don't have to do that, but if you do, you get a kiss on your brain, and it's like a sticker, and you don't really get anything, but it's just like a kiss on your brain because you're doing it for your brain. And okay, so then you have like a set of kids. I would say probably like 4 max would be pretty appropriate group size for this game. Maybe 5, but I just am not sure how many marbles. Like, I don't know if this is enough marbles that I have here. For 5, I guess it kind of depends on, I'd have to play it kind of a few times to get a feel for it, but I think probably 3 or 4 is pretty good size for this. This is upside down. I've been playing with the wheel quite a bit. So you spin the wheel and see mine landed on a seal, and it says +12 marbles. So that's where like some of my questions would come into play that I put on my lesson plan. So I would say something like, what do you think that the symbol is telling us? What do you think this card is telling us when it has this symbol here and then this number here? So I'm hoping that they can show me their letter recognition skills by looking at the number and being able to tell me how many marbles they need to drop into the water. Which I haven't gotten to that part yet, but that's what we're going to do. It says 12 marbles. I'm going to take 12 marbles and drop 12 marbles into this bowl right here. And then I'm hoping that like they can see this plus sign and they're going to think, oh, it's add 12 marbles. And if they don't, then that's totally fine. I will just tell them. So then you add your 12 marbles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, I'm going to try to be as quiet as possible because it's kind of late. Oh, there I go. Okay. So ideally the kids would, or not ideally, but like most likely what would happen is the kids would be dropping them in 1 at a time or 2 at a time, or as they count. I was just doing it, trying to be as quiet as possible, but as you can see that the water level like raised significantly from this fill line. So the idea is that every time we have to add more marbles, it's going to get taller and taller and taller until it overflows. And you're just going to keep doing this until that happens. So there are a total of, I made a total of 16 cards, and there are 14 spots on the wheel. So for my game, how I have it set up, like, I guess you would call it like a standard preparation or setup, excuse me, is I have 2 of each except for the whale and the porpoise, because those are the highest amount of marbles. The whale says add 18 marbles, and then the porpoise says add 14 marbles. I only have 1 of each of those because they were the higher cards, and I felt like, I mean, if you see how much the water level raised just from the 12, if you got 2 18 in a row, like I feel like that would be a really fast gameplay. And then I also added, instead of having the 2 whales and the 2 porpoises, because that freed up 2 spaces, I have these ocean cards. So there's the ocean card right there, and it says -2 ounces of water. So what you're going to do if you land on that is you're going to take your dropper and you're going to go bloop and take your 2 ounces of water out. The idea is to kind of slow down the amount of time it's taking to fill that up so you can kind of extend your gameplay. Now, if you didn't have a lot of time, or if the kids didn't really have that long of an attention span, you can certainly swap these cards out for the other 2 cards, the other whale and the other porpoise cards, which I did make. I have them here somewhere. Oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. They look exactly the same as these. They're just another whale and another porpoise card. And excuse me. If you wanted to do an even longer game, though, you could just lower the water level to a little bit lower, and it would take longer for it to get up there. Now, so like the container that I chose looks kind of like a fishbowl. I don't think I need to pick it up. I'm pretty sure you can see it. So as you get to the middle, it gets really, really wide. Now, the first time when I had this idea and I tried it out, I only filled it to about halfway. And when I was dropping marbles in there, it literally was taking forever for it to even show the slightest change of like a visible change in water level. So then I took everything out and I started over, and that's when I filled it up to like this spot right here. And I noticed it was way quicker for the water level to rise as I was adding the marbles. So I started counting, and I realized that I noticed that after about every 6 marbles is when I would notice like a sizable change. So that's why I started at 6 for Trout, which is the smallest animal that she ate in the first one that the old lady ate. And then the marbles that you add increases for the size of the animal that she eats. So like I said, the smallest one is Trout, that's at 6. The next one is salmon, which is 8, otter 10, and then seal 12, and so on and so on. I found out that at this particular level, in this particular container, it took 72 marbles to make it overflow. And that's not, I have about, I don't even remember how many I actually have. I think I have about 172 marbles total. So, I mean, you could go a long way with it, but these ones are pretty high. The, where is it? The whale and the porpoise are pretty high. So again, if you wanted it to last longer, you notice that it wasn't, it was way too short of a gameplay, you could adjust it. Otherwise, you could just play again and see if you get see if the wheel lands on different fish that time. See, this is minus another 2 ounces of water. Okay, so the math. So the learning objectives I have here, well, like, let's start with the WeMails. The WeMails standards that I have are first is health and physical development, fine motor, because these little guys, you have to kind of pinch them and do this little number, and you're working out those little finger muscles. And then I also have approaches to learning for persistence and flexibility. And this is because I noticed with kids, especially like between 3 to 4, their attention span for a board game or kind of like this isn't necessarily as long as someone who's like 4 to 6, I guess. So this would be really kind of, I think the water adds like a really cool aspect, and it's like really fun and different. So I'm hoping it keeps their attention and focus on this activity for an extended period of time, especially with like how big and bright and colorful the wheel is. And then and then obviously like the bulk of it comes from cognition and general knowledge. I have, rote counting, 1-to-1 correspondence, number recognition, and then I even had like this nice little added thing here with the 2 ounces with understanding measurement. It's hard to see, and I don't know if I can get you to see in the video, but we'll see here. Oh, okay. Here we go. So there are measurements on here, and here's the 2 ounces right there. And the reason why I chose 2 ounces is because I played around with how much water you get with one squeeze. And give or take like maybe like a half or a quarter of an ounce. But almost every single time, if you just squeeze it fully like this, and then you just let go, you're gonna get about 2 ounces. Like this one was, I think, actually really full. Yeah, this one is a little over 2 ounces. This one's almost 2.5. But I mean, honestly, for the most part, like, let's try again. Yep, this one's like 2.5 again. Oh, okay. And like for our younger kids, like we could just have them be at that, and that's good. But maybe for our older kids who need a little bit of extra challenge, we could say, okay, you take your water out. Is it 2 ounces? Oh, nope, it's a little over, so now we have to squeeze a little bit, but you have to be kind of gentle because you don't want to squeeze too much out, because then you have to take more. And here now we're at 2 ounces, and we let it out. And then like something actually really cool about this that wasn't even intentional. It just kind of was like a happenstance. And again, for noise and time purposes, I'm gonna try and use bigger rocks. But again, I guess like the way that you explain this is gonna change based on your group and the age and the development and all that good stuff. But something that is really cool with this is like the surface tension that you get to see. Oh no. There we go. I hope it wasn't out of focus for that long. But the surface tension. So as I said before, that it took 72 marbles for that to fill up and actually like overflow. But I thought it was gonna overflow probably at about like 65-ish. This massive bubble just like completely took over the bowl. I want to see if I can get it like that really quickly. I have some bigger rocks here. Oh, here we go. Oh, that's not a lot. Okay, that one was pretty big. Okay, now we can start doing marbles. Okay, so let's bring this a little closer. As you can see here, I'll just keep it like this. There's our old lady. So it's pretty full. It's not quite bubbling yet, but it's gonna get there soon. Add one more. And 1, 2, 3. Kind of quick to get that full. Okay, so here our bubble is starting. I'm gonna be a lot more gentle now. So here, it's gonna have the capacity to take whatever it's gonna take, and I don't think it's gonna matter too much, like how gently you put it in. I mean, it will a little, but look at how cool it is. I feel like the kids are gonna slow down, try to like lightly drop it in there so it doesn't overflow. And once that bubble forms, like you could stop and be like, oh my gosh, look at the bubble. Why do you think it's doing that? And then you could just like slow down and then count how many it took once the bubble started to get it to actually pop. Oh, one little drop. Maybe we can just like count that and do one more. Ooh, a little bit. Let's just drop 3. There we go. Overflowed. And that's where the game ends, and then you can either start over or just be done.